Hello everyone, and welcome back to the snow tutorial. I'm finding during these kind of weird times, it's good to just stay productive, so I figured I might as well return to this tutorial series and knock out some of these because I actually just wrapped up a game project and submitted it to the Google Play Store for Android and got a message that it's going to be probably quite a while before it gets reviewed due to the whole current COVID-19 situation. So I want to stay busy and stay positive, and I hope everyone out there is doing very well. You're healthy and you're safe. So let's go ahead and add a wind variable to our system so that if we want, we could have a gust of wind to the left or to the right and have our snowflakes react accordingly. So in order to do that, let's first start with a new variable, a global variable we'll just call wind. We'll set it to 0, and this is in the create event of the snow controller. So this will only run once on the creation of the snow controller. So now we've established that variable, let's make sure we implement that variable in what the snowflake is doing. Because right now, the snowflake has no influence by this wind variable we've just created. It's only doing what we set it to do before. We took this snow direction variable, gave it irandom2, so it returns 0, 1, or 2, and depending on each of those, it does something different. So on 0, it goes to the left. If it's 1, it does nothing, it goes straight down. And if it's 2, the only other case, it will go to the right. But now we have to make sure that the snowflake is being influenced by that wind variable. So how do we do that? Well, all we've got to do for this first instance is add idx to not only -1, but the wind variable. Right? So as of now, this won't do anything different because global wind is 0. But imagine that we set global wind to 5. In that case, it would be taking -1 plus 5 and becoming 4. So the wind would be overcoming this -1 drift to the left and actually start moving right at a pretty rapid pace. So now, here, instead of doing nothing, we want the x value to be influenced again by wind. So all we're doing here, idx equals the same thing, plus global.wind. And here, same as up here. If it's going to the right, doing idx plus 1 plus global.wind. So if wind were negative and we had effectively a wind going to the left, let's say wind was set to -5, this would now become -4. So it's adding to itself -4, thus now going to the left. And let's see this in action. So right now, it's going to be exactly the same as we had it before. You've got some snowflakes going straight down, some are going slightly to the left, and some are going slightly to the right because wind is set to 0. But now let's just check, like we were talking about before, what would happen if we change this to 5. So let's go ahead and do that. So now we should have a pretty much a gust of wind going to the right. Yep. And that's exactly what we get. But obviously there's a problem with this, because the snowflakes are continuously spawning at the top of the screen. So they're going off the screen at a much quicker pace because all the snow is now being blown to the right. So instead of being reset anywhere in the middle of the screen, they're always being reset at the top of the screen. And as soon as they respawn, they go right down here, and then they respawn up here, and then they keep going on and on and on forever. So we need to make some corrections to our off-screen event to make sure that this doesn't happen. So let's go back to the snowflake and go and take a look at the outside room code. So right now, all we're doing when it goes outside the room is no matter where it is, we're saying idy equals 0. But that probably shouldn't be the case, because as we just saw, if we have it set like that, it's just going to continuously spawn at the top of the screen irrespective of where it exits the screen. And let's say it exits the screen right here. We want it to, instead of going right back to the top of the screen, respawn on the left of the screen and at that same Y value, so that it will continue to fall at that same rate, but when it's going off the screen, it's reappearing in a more appropriate place to make the kind of illusion of the snowfall look a bit better. So let's go ahead and do that. And I'm actually just kind of doing this off the cuff again. I don't remember how I accomplished this last time, but I have a pretty good idea. So let's just take and say if ID X is greater than the room width. So essentially, it went outside the room because it went further than the width of the room. In that case, when it respawns, we want to have it so that it's coming right back exactly where it is in terms of a y-coordinate. So in other words, the y-coordinate is not changing. But the x-coordinate is becoming, just being reset to 0. So it's going off the screen to the right. It resets at that same y value, but with an x value that's now 0. So all we're going to do is IDX equals 0. And actually, we're going to have to comment this out, because this is not what we want to happen anymore. Or rather, we take this and we use it somewhere else, like so. So we say if ID Y is greater than room height. So now we're saying in the case that the snowflake went off the screen because it went off the bottom of the screen, now we're doing what we did before. We want to put it right back to the top of the screen with a new X spawn that's just random anywhere given on the top of the room. And now for the case where we have a negative wind value, IDX is less than room width. If I could spell. We are now going to have the X value. If it goes off to the left, it's going to respawn at the same height, so no change in the Y, but it's going to respawn on the other side of the room, on the right. So IDX now equals room width. So there goes our errors. They've cleared up. And frankly, I have no idea if this is going to work. I'm pretty sure it will. But let's just take a look and see what happens. Nope, doesn't work. Hang on, let me take a look at this. Alright, I'm back. A little embarrassed at how long that took to figure out. I was using debug messages in this little console down here to figure out what was going on. You can completely disregard the debug messages. It's a good way to figure out what's going wrong with your code if you need it. You can use the debug message to show variables or any given thing you'd like when a certain thing happens. So I was checking, making sure that the messages were showing up if and when this happened, yada yada. But the solution was way simpler than really all of that necessitated. All that I did wrong was, here I'm saying if IDX is less than room width, it is constantly less than room width because room width is all the way on the other side of the screen. So it's either greater, I'm saying, okay, in the case where it's greater, set it to this. When it's less, set it to this. It was getting confused because, it's on a very constant basis. Anytime it's between 0 and room width, supposed to be less than room width. So all I did was change this to 0. So I want to say if it's off the screen over here, room width is the total value of the actual length of the room. So that's why that wasn't working. So let's go ahead and give that a shot And I think this will work. Yep, there we go. Okay, and as you can see, now our wind effect looks a whole lot better. When it's going off the screen over here, it's coming right back around and respawning over here so that we have a much more consistent looking layer of snow. The shelter's still working as we anticipated, only now it's much less effective because, just like in real life, if you had an overhead shelter and the wind was blowing the snow in from the side, it wouldn't really do you all that much good. And we can take another look at just how simple it is to change this system by considering a case where we have kind of like a wall. So if you had like a little guy in here who wants to be protected from the snow, this would do a much better job of it. Because now we've got some protection from the snow coming in from over here. And just like that, you can see it's properly blocking out the snow, it's properly respawning, it's being drawn when it's being respawned. Everything is looking pretty good. And let's just go ahead and take a look at the snow controller again. Let's try just the opposite. Let's call it -5 and see if the system still works. So now the wind should be going to the other side of the screen. Yep, and just like that, there it goes. And so now you have a global variable that you can manipulate from any object, any script you might write. So this, let's set it back to 0. And let's play around with this a bit. Let's now have the snow controller give this kind of a random variable every, I don't know, 10 seconds. So let's have a new alarm, alarm 0, which we will set to, I believe that would need to be 600. If I'm recalling how alarms work properly, I guess we'll find out. And when that alarm goes off, all we're going to do is give wind a new variable from, let's say, -7 to 7. So now it should select a new value anywhere between -7 and 7. And then let's go ahead and reset the alarm so that this will continuously go off every 10 seconds and we'll get some new fun stuff going on with that snow. And just so we can make sure we can actually see what this alarm is doing and what it's set the wind to and all that, let's try this. Let's go in Draw and have it so that it's constantly drawing text. And let's actually make that text a different color so that it doesn't interfere with the snow. Text draw color, I think. No. Draw, what is it? Here we go. Draw text color. We'll put it right below the top of the screen there. 1010. String is going to be global.wind. Which I'm not sure if we need to convert this to a string or if it just automatically will do it for us. I guess we'll find out. And just have C red. And this, the reason there's 4 different inputs here, if you were to go and take a look at this draw text color, is because you can kind of have this kind of cool blend of colors if you'd like, but if you want them all to be one color, then you just do it this way. Make all of them the same value. And then the alpha of 1, that should be good. Draw text, let's do the same thing. Color. And alarm 0. Let's do blue for this, because why not? Okay, let's see if that works properly. What does it want here? Unexpected syntax error. Oop, that'll do it. Okay. And we want this actually, now that I'm thinking about it, to be a bit further down the screen. Let's check and see if this works. So yep, here's our alarm counting down, and when it reaches 0, it should reset and give a new value up here, unless it happens to be 0. So just like that, it selected on iRandom range. It happened to be -7, which is the lowest end of the spectrum. You can see a very intense wind. Oh, and now it's down to -4. So the wind is relaxed a bit. We've got our countdown here. And when that's up, hopefully we get a new range. And now it's to 1. So just a little bit of drift to the right. And this kind of gives you an idea of how you can use really any event you want to change the wind. Now that it's a global variable that's taken into account for our snowflake object, you can have any kind of control. You can have kind of a game logic controller that says, okay, when the game comes to a new day cycle, it'll pick a new wind variable. Or just any time it happens to snow or rain, it picks a new wind variable. And this will let you control that. So until next time, that's all we got for now.